It was the 1950s in a small, quiet town in Wisconsin, Plainfield. A peaceful place, where days unfolded with a slow, predictable rhythm. Children played in the dusty streets, shopkeepers chatted with regular customers, and the air held an almost tangible calm. But not everything in Plainfield was ordinary. Deep within the dense woods, shrouded by mist and mystery, stood a farmhouse, lonely, decrepit. Its walls seemed to groan with secrets. This house belonged to a man, a quiet man, a man whose name carried an uneasy weight, Gein. He was polite enough, helpful even, but there was something about him, something that made people keep their distance. Maybe it was the hollow look in his eyes, or the way his shadow lingered just a moment too long. Whatever it was, folks avoided him, and yet no one truly knew what went on behind the doors of that isolated farmhouse. But everything changed with one shocking event. A local shopkeeper, Bernice Worden, vanished, just gone. One moment, she was behind the counter, chatting with a customer. The next, the store was empty, a register drawer left wide open, its contents missing. "Did you hear?" whispered one woman, clutching her coat tightly. "She never made it home last night." The news spread fast like fire in a dry field. Questions raced through the community. Where had she gone? What could have happened to someone so familiar, so safe? The quiet town of Plainfield was suddenly gripped by fear. Doors slammed shut earlier than usual. Curtains were drawn tight. The streets emptied as the sun dipped below the horizon. But the truth behind Bernice's disappearance was more horrifying than they could imagine. This isn't just a story about a missing woman. It's a story about twisted obsession, about one man's descent into unspeakable darkness. I'm Henry, and you're listening to Dark Whispers, the channel where shadows come to life and forgotten horrors resurface. Tonight, we dive into the haunting legacy of Gein, a name that continues to chill the world. But I'll warn you now, once you step into this darkness, you might not find your way out. The search for Bernice led the police to Gein's farm, a place many knew of, but few had dared to go. As the officers approached, their unease was almost palpable. The farmhouse loomed over them, like a specter, its darkened windows resembling hollow eyes watching their every move. "This place is," one officer murmured, swallowing hard. "Oh, you feel that?" Another nodded grimly. "Let's just get this over with." They forced open the door, their boots crunching against the warped floorboards. And then, the smell hit them. A rancid, overpowering stench filled their lungs. One officer gagged, stumbling back. "God, what is that? Is something dead in here?" They pressed on, pushing back their disgust, but as they explored, a horrifying scene began to unfold. The walls, lined with horrors. The first grotesque sight was a chair, covered in what appeared to be human skin. "Oh my God," whispered one officer, barely audible. But it didn't end there. Every corner of the house held a twisted creation. A lampshade, stitched with flesh. A soup bowl, fashioned from a human skull. And hanging on the wall nests, human faces, carefully preserved and mounted as if they were trophies. "Dear God," stammered another officer. "It's like he wore them." But the nightmare reached its peak in the basement. A single bare bulb swung from the ceiling, casting eerie shadows over a figure in the corner. At first, they thought it was a mannequin, until they looked closer. It was a suit made entirely of human flesh, stitched together with sickening precision. Legs, arms, a torso, and a grotesque hood that resembled a face. One officer staggered back, clutching the wall for support. "This guy, He was trying to become someone else. The grisly puzzle began to piece itself together. Gein's victims hadn't just disappeared, they had been turned into macabre art. But even worse, most of these bodies hadn't been alive in years. Gein had been desecrating grapes for decades, unearthing corpses for his nightmarish creations. And Gein wasn't just a murderer. He was an artist of death, a man lost in his own warped fantasies that reality had ceased to exist. His crime shocked not only his community but the entire nation. Hollywood took notice, too, drawing inspiration from Gein's horrors to create some of the most iconic villains in cinematic history. Norman Bates in Psycho, Leatherface in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And yet, for the people of Plainfield, Ed Gein wasn't a character. He was real, a neighbor they had passed on the street, someone they thought they knew. Even after his capture, the town never recovered. The once quiet streets were now haunted by whispers of what happened in that farmhouse. Today, nothing remains of it. It was burned to the ground in an attempt to erase the horror. But some things linger. Walk through Plainfield, and you might still feel it. The quiet unease, the sense that something dark once rooted itself there, something that refuses to fully die. So, the next time you see your quiet neighbor, the one who keeps to himself, ask yourself, could another Ed Gein be lurking right next door?